wanna turn and I ain't home. You think I'm running around like crazy, but I know you get what you deserve. People talking about us, baby. It's time to believe things we heard now. If you love me like I love you, then you know that it ain't true.
You know I've been a rude boy, baby. Hope I don't get all that I deserve. When I'm tripping on a love, I'm only looking for what I've been guilty of. Maybe it's payback, baby. I'm starting to believe the things I've heard. But if you love me like I love you, then you know that it ain't true. I'm alone again tonight, thinking things ain't right.
Baby, dry your eyes, 'cause I never do you wrong, I only do you right.
I know you won't do me wrong,
I only do you right.
I love it when you do me right.
If you love me like I love you, then you know that it ain't true. It ain't true, it ain't true.
When we're together,
Ain't nothing wrong.
when apart, why would that change?
If our love is strong,
You do what you have to do.
try to go away.
I ain't sweating rumors, because our love is real.
Testing.
I don't think you're a bad girl, baby. I think we are one and the same.
And you know you're my rude boy, darling. When it comes to love, this ain't no game, no.
If you love me like I love you, ooh. If you love me like I love you, ooh. If you love me like I love you, then you know that it ain't true. It ain't true. It ain't true.
Then you know that it ain't
also speaking tonight, Derek Gabriel. Gwen Rolls over here with her thumbs up in the air, giving it a high sign. I also have two board members on Neighbor Island, Laura Kinishida on the Big Island, and Roxanne Darling, who's also the founder of Social Media Club. She's now on Maui, and she still sits on our board. Yeah, give them a round of applause. Thank you also to our sponsors. Hagenon Printing sponsors our event venue, and that enables us to keep tonight's costs extremely reasonably low for all of you. So thank you, Hagenon. GoToMeeting is also a sponsor for us. We're not using them tonight, but they do provide services to us for free, and Bearfeed Studios as well. And I'd also like, we have a number of pro members here tonight. So if you're a pro member, if you'd like to stand up, we'd like to recognize you and thank you for supporting Social Media Club. There's a number of you. Yeah? It's like a little pop-up. It's like that name pop-up. Okay. Okay. And also, if you missed it, last Friday, Social Media Club was included in an article from Pacific Business News, so you can go ahead and look that up. We'll also have it posted on our website. Rob was quoted in that article. Rob Berthoff, one of our speakers, is quoted in that article. Yeah, we can give him a round of applause too. A lot of times support our Social Media Club. Thank you for your help. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick introduction of our speakers, and then we'll get this show on the road. Is that all right with you guys? You ready? They're like, we've been ready, we're ready. Okay, Rob Berthoff of Clearly M. Raise your hand, Rob. Professional member of Social Media Club, one of the very first, might I add, successful entrepreneur, internationally recognized authority on SEO, search engine optimization, accomplished software developer, a decorated military veteran, serial innovator, and Epicurean. Unfortunately, we're not letting him do that last part tonight. He's also a regular speaker and instructor for corporate and academic institutions, including Pacific New Media, whose brochures are sitting on the desk tonight. And he, on occasion, consults with the state of Hawaii on future internet trends and his Google Analytics guru. Right? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Rob, for joining us tonight. Derek Gabriel, standing at the helm, creator of Coffee Fetch coffee delivery service in downtown Honolulu, founding developer of Department of Energy award-winning web application Drive, which helps utility companies manage peak demand by rewarding consumers for energy-saving behaviors. You may have heard about this. This was kind of a national contest. A lot of you that voted for this particular app. He's also the founder and owner of Gabriel Phoenix Communications, a full-service information technology service provider. He's also our tech dude on site here. And he provides technical management and marketing consulting, web and mobile application development, and he's a social media pro as well. And finally, Neil Kiddo, he's new to Social Media Club. He's the founder of AkamaiSEO.com. He got his start building websites while in college. And in 2003, he turned his interest towards SEO and has been consulting with some of Hawaii's most visible organizations in a wide range of industries. The Akamai SEO team utilizes analytics data to improve the user experience and, more importantly, increase conversions and revenue. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to our presenters. And before we get started, sorry guys. Psych. You all have cards on your table, green, yellow, and red.
Welcome, welcome. So, can everyone hear me okay? Am I too close to the mic, not far enough? All right. You just taught me how to do that. Did that work? Yes, no? All right. I'll just stand down here. So, welcome, welcome, guys. Tonight is on web analytics. Really kind of wanted to lay an introductory track on, what is Google Analytics or what is web analytics as a whole, understanding the importance of it, and I'm going to try to keep this, as fun and entertaining as possible, even though we're talking about some, pretty geeky stuff. But at the end of the day, it's really the sexiest part of marketing, hands down, right? So you have all these different, things that we're doing out there, right? We want to have a good website. We want to have, good position in the search ranking. We want to have really good, quality social strategies and be able to market all this. Well, traditional media, everything. All of that, at the end of the day, if you don't know how it's converting or if it's converting, it doesn't mean anything, right? You're literally wasting your time. So the whole thing, one of the main part we want to talk about tonight is going to range through things just basically, what are the different metrics, right? So what's kind of involved, and what is it that we look at, right? A lot of us probably have Google Analytics already. We've gone to the dashboard, we've seen it, we said that looks really pretty, but what does it mean? So we're going to kind of walk through that tonight. The other section, part of this is going to be traffic sources. So a really cool thing just recently, just in the last couple of months, Google has started to really recognize and embrace social data, which is really exciting for us. So we're going to go through that tonight as well. And also, what does qualified traffic look like? So those are kind of some of the basic pieces here. We'll start off with what is web analytics. So a really good book. This was put out years and years ago, but it's still a really fantastic book by Eric T. Peterson, Web Analytics Demystified. So by all means, if you want to take a look at this book here, but in the end of the day, it's just the idea that we're looking at data to help improve a process. So it's either that's helping understand the traffic coming to the site, better converting the traffic. There's a whole wide range of things, and it really can be best summarized in kind of breaking into different pieces. So no matter your different, whatever background you guys are here tonight, whether you're a marketer, a software developer, whether you're a CEO, whether you are, literally any aspect, right? Web analytics is for you, okay? So the idea of this is that, if you're a web programmer, so you're the guy that's in charge of building the website, what you're able to do is identify, using Google Analytics, things like technical restrictions, right? You can think of things like, what's the size of the monitor that most of my traffic is using? And maybe you identify that now you've shrunk that down because most of your traffic is maybe coming through mobile. Maybe you need to know that you need a mobile site. Well, analytics will tell you if you need a mobile site or not. The answer is yes, but analytics will reinforce that reason that you need a mobile site. It also helps out with just user flow. You can identify things like exit ratios. And we're going to talk all about these different terms, but that's just the general idea is that if you're a web programmer in the room, good job being here, you're going to learn some cool things. If you're a UI designer, there's information for you. And if you're a marketing manager, there's tons of information for you as well. So the idea just simply being, no matter what your background is, there's something in analytics for you. So real quick, there's a lot of different analytics software out there. Tonight's topic was mostly just around Google Analytics, but some other ones you may want to write down and take a look at. ClickTail. ClickTail is pretty interesting. It allows you to actually physically see where people are clicking on your site, and it's like you walked in someone's living room and stood behind over their shoulders watching them browse your website. It's really freaky stuff. So that's ClickTail again. Another one that's kind of interesting that I'll just throw out there is Crazy Egg. And Crazy Egg does really good heat maps. So the idea of a heat map is that it kind of just, wherever you hover your mouse, wherever you're clicking, it gives you that data. So that's different opportunities there. The one we're going to talk about tonight is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is completely free. It's provided by Google. If you have, as an example, WordPress, you can install very, very easily. This is the recommended plugin that I use, which is just a plugin by Yoast, which is Google Analytics for WordPress. This plugin goes into your website and makes it very, very easy to install the tracking code. Now, for those of you that are not on WordPress, first, shame on you. Second, get on WordPress. But third, there's a way that you would install the tracking code is a snippet of code. It's a little JavaScript file. And it goes in what's called the head of your HTML document. So the idea of this is that you would go through, if you have what's called a static website or a website that's not on a content management system, you're going to go into each of the pages and you're going to install this little tracking code in the header of each of these pages. If you have 1,000 pages in your site, you're going to do that 1,000 times. So having a content management system looks pretty good right now, right? So again, the one I'd recommend would be Google Analytics for WordPress. When we look at, when we actually jump right into the site itself, and you've installed your Google Analytics tracking code, you can actually start seeing your data. Once the tracking code's installed is when it starts collecting data. So then you're going to need a couple weeks or a month to start seeing some good data. For the geeks in the room, there is a thing called server log analytics, which is different than this, but the idea is that you only start seeing with Google Analytics the data as soon as you install it. So what that means is make sure if it's not installed, it's installed tonight. That way next week you have some data that you can look at and start making informed decisions. So that's my recommendation there. When we first come to the screen here, this is the basic dashboard. You know, the first thing we see is we've got we got visits, we got unique visitors, these different terms. You know, what's interesting is that back in the day, if you've had a website like 97, right? It had thank you for coming to my page and some animated GIF beating a drum or something like that. And there was thousands of these drums all over the page, and it said under construction, And at the bottom of your page, it had this thing that said, click counter, 1 million hits, right? And then you go to your friends, your mom, and you'd say, check it out, I got 1 million people on my website. But you didn't, because you had 1,000 animated GIFs on your page. Every time they hit the refresh button, it went up by 1,001. So it only took a few clicks for you yourself to view the page until you get to 1 million. The idea is that when we're looking at the data, hits is literally any time a file has been touched. So if I start getting glossy eyes or whatever, the point is completely ignore hits. It's completely irrelevant. What we want to start looking at is things like page views as we move up, right? A page view is every time somebody looks at a different page on your site. So it's not counting all the files that it has to touch on the server, just the one page itself. But if you can imagine, that's still not very qualified data. So let's take a little bit, another ring up, which would be visits. So visits would be every time that you have somebody come to your website. This is pretty much the standard, the standard metric that we typically look at. But you have to understand that a visit could be the same person a different day for every day of the year from different computers and things like this. So what you want to do is you want to also take a look at unique visitors. So the idea that it's blowing up, it's over here only. The idea is that unique visitors are individual people. So it tracks things like your browser and the IP address you're on. The idea simply is, I put this up here because it's really important to understand what is qualified metrics. So when we start talking about things like return on investment, you're going to be looking at things like the absolute unique or the unique visitors, not just visits, right? That's all I want to get across. So hopefully we all got that. When we take a look at now how to analyze data, one of the things to also look at is that there's a lot of data that can actually be kind of junk. So the idea here is that what you want to do is compare the data against itself. Now what I mean by that is you'll notice things like if you're logged into Google, Google has stopped showing some of your data in Google Analytics. I don't know the reason for this. Maybe you guys can chime in later. I think maybe it's a play later on to actually show a new level of data. But the idea is that you're actually starting getting these things called not set or not available type of keywords in different data sources. So the idea is that end of the day, Google Analytics is not perfect, right? It's far better than any other analytic program out there, but you still have to realize that to have data perfectly, you want to analyze it against itself. And what that means is maybe you want to look at data from July versus data from June, right? And do a comparison, because that data is going to be pretty darn accurate, okay? So the idea again is that, use apples to apples when you're analyzing your data. So when we start talking about now, we've said, okay, there's things called visits, there's unique visits, things along this line. How do I start really quantifying where my traffic's coming from? And that's under traffic sources. So what we see here is there's two main types of traffic. There's direct traffic, and that's only coming from people that go into into your web browser, and in the URL bar they type in yourdomain.com. So that's tracked as direct traffic because they just typed it into the URL, okay? Direct traffic, when you're running the report, that means that your traditional marketing is working essentially, right? That could be anything from print ads to TV ads to radio ads to business cards. Anytime somebody physically sees your web address and types it into the browser, right? That becomes a direct traffic. Well, the other side of the traffic is referral. And referral means that you were already on somebody else's site, somewhere out on the web, and then you clicked a link and came to the site that you're on now. So the idea here is that referral is really kind of the traffic that actually starts having a little more metrics to it. A lot more capabilities can come from tracking the referral traffic. And referral, the idea is just that it's any link coming from another site to your site, and they clicked on that link and came to you, that's a referral. Well, as the search engines, obviously, traffic from the search engines is huge. It's always, in every one of my clients, it's always the top, piece of the pie. Well, what's interesting to note is that, Google says, well, let's make your life easier. So they break referral down into organic and paid, which comes from the search engines. Organic being the if you are ranked in, let's say, the part that's not the sponsored links, right? It's the part that you have worked your way up based on merit of inbound links and other Google algorithm tools. Paid is if you've purchased that position. So it's typically the top 2 positions in the right-hand bar. The other element that they're actually now tracking is social. So I'm kind of monotone, going on and on and on, but I'm going to break here for a second and just reinforce that Google Analytics now tracks social, right? That's huge, right? In the social media club community, everyone should be like cheering and waving. Cheering? No? Okay. Yay! All right. The idea is that why this is important is because you can track the lead source and actually identify all the way down to how that each individual lead source is working, right? So if you're looking at on the search engine side, you can look at how's the Facebook traffic coming, right? How's the Twitter traffic coming? It even has pretty much every form of social platform has been identified and is indicated here and is separated out. So what's really interesting about that is we can identify, hey, this blog post that I created, or this tweet that I sent out, or this Facebook post that I created, how quality was that, right? How did they engage? Did they engage when they came from the site? Did it seem to match, the content? Was the call to action good? Things like that. So again, when we're looking at things like referral traffic, we're really able to start identifying down to the lead source. So when you start looking at the data, I never look at the overall data. I don't care. I want to break it down to a lead source first and then look at that data. Because what you may find is that one lead source may have a horrible user engagement and may throw off the rest of your traffic. So take a look at the referral source level. Yes, please. From the best of my knowledge, no, because Google would not be able to. Actually, hold on a second here. And maybe you guys can chime in on this. Any URL, period, is going to be tracked. So it won't be able to give any kind of rich data, but it should still be able to tell you the URL that it came from. That's not, when you get the response code, that's included. So yes, it would come from personal pages, but it would not give any additional analytics outside of that. Okay, so what does a qualified visitor look like, right? That comes the question. And the thing to put in is there's 4 main terms that you can look at. The first term is simply, we've already talked about how many visits, right? Well, that's kind of the starting kind of point. So let's start with that. That's how many people have come to the site, but again, it's not uniques and things like this. When they come to the site, what happens? Do they immediately leave the site, or which is considered a bounce ratio, do they immediately leave the site, or they stick around and go to another page? This is probably when you're looking at the low-level metrics, this is probably one of the more interesting or important. The idea that if you have, let's say, some sort of call to action on another site that you're trying to drive somebody to your site, and you have this, maybe it's a banner, maybe it's a text, maybe it's a link, whatever it is, when you drive somebody in, if they walk in the door and immediately leave, right, obviously it doesn't matter how much traffic you get at that point because they didn't stay. So one of the things you can do that I typically do when I'm looking at visitor traffic is I will actually essentially percent out the bounce ratio, the bounce traffic, right? So you may wonder, what's a good bounce ratio look like? I like anything less than 20%. Anything less than 40% is okay. Anything above 40%, you should go home and cry, because it's like having 4 people walk in your store and immediately 4 of them leave right away. So it's not really really good. I've seen sites as high as 80%, which is, you might as well just shut it down. What's the point, right? So the idea that bounce ratio allows you to identify people coming in if what they found was interesting enough. Typically what I like to do is I like to say, okay, did I get informed right away? Did I get engaged, right? Did the site design, was it appealing enough to the point where I feel it's enough, it's professional enough that I want to stick around? The next piece I look at is inform. You only have a couple seconds, less than a couple seconds, just to inform somebody, hey, this is where I'm located, this is what I do, this is my core product. And then if they're interested, you need to have a very clear call to action that people can click on to get converted in. And wait till Derek gets up and talks. That's going to be some really exciting stuff because he's going to talk about conversion, which I'm going to get to. But the idea again is that bounce ratio is one of the primary metrics that lets you know, if your website is providing as expected to what the link looked like, right? Again, if you have a high bounce ratio, there could be a number of things. Don't look at the bounce ratio site-wide. It won't tell you anything. dive down into the sources, identify, okay, which source has the highest bounce ratio. You may find that you have 30 here, and 80 here. Okay, let's say maybe the 80 is organic, or maybe the 80 is paid search. Well, let's dive in. What keyword was it that you're paying for or optimizing for, or what keyword was it that was in that social media, let's say it was a tweet or something like that. And then identify, did that accurately represent the information? So that's just one little low-level thing to do. The other element that's somewhat similar is exit. So if you've come into the site and you've bounced around to, you've checked a few pages and then you decide to leave, that's considered an exit. And how you improve an exit is you identify, did they get what they wanted? Now, when you're looking at exit pages, the contact us page, driving directions, download a form, these are all acceptable pages to have 100% exit, whatever you want, doesn't matter, because they've got the information and they've moved on. If your About Us page has a high exit ratio, if a services page has a high exit ratio, you may want to look at that and say, wow, maybe I better engage this visitor on this page. Maybe I better try to pull them back in, have a really clear call to action to pull them back in to the rest of the site. So those are some things, again, that you can look at from a content performance standpoint to identify if what you're doing is working or not. But when you go down further, it really comes down to, what we just talked about was really low level again, okay? The next piece that Derek's going to speak to now is the exciting part, right? We drew straws. I got the short end. I had to do this part. I want to do the next part. I'm not going to lie to you. The next part's fun. The idea of the next part is that you're able to go in and actually apply return on investment. You're actually to identify when you put things like event tracking and goal tracking. That's pretty sexy stuff. It allows you to say, hey, not only did they come to my site, but they did actually convert something. I'm not going to steal his thunder, so you better get up here before I do. But I'm just telling you that conversion is the sexy part, and that's really how we start better qualifying traffic. So with that, Mr. Derek.
Good afternoon. I'm a little concerned because I see that Yancey's in the room, and I'm going to kill you with PowerPoint. So anyway, all right. Conversion. So simply put, conversion is meeting your objectives or goals with the site. So, we can break conversion down into a couple of different types. You've got a macro conversion, which is kind of an overall conversion. That would be, let's say, your site sells stuff. Great. Then you have micro conversion, right? And so micro is all of the other things people do on your website when they're not using your website. So that's doing some research on your products or services, that's getting support, that's reading your blog posts, and those types of things. Those things are all important because they lead to the overall function of what your site does. And so those are important too. So what kind of things are actually measurable in conversion? Well, you would measure a macro conversion as like an order placed service event. Micro conversion would be a page view. Someone clicks to share a link, someone clicks to print a document, something to that effect. So how do we measure these things with Google Analytics? We use what are called goals. So we define those objectives that we talked about earlier that will turn into conversion in a set of goals. Pretty simple. So we'll break that down into 4 types. So in these 4 types of goals, we start out with what's called a URL destination. This is one I love, so it's more my favorite because I do e-commerce a lot. And so a URL destination is something specific that a person gets to. So that would be your thank you page, your order complete, signing up for a newsletter, something like that. And these are important, and we're going to get to this a little later, but these are important for sales funnels. Keep that in mind. All right, next is visit duration. So this would be, how long was someone on your site? Is someone there for 2 minutes, longer than 2 minutes? Now, why would this be important to track? This would be important to track if you're trying to increase user engagement on your site. Let's say you're a blogger and you want people to read a lot of blog posts every time they come to your site. Well, if you start conducting modifications and changes and site designs to try to increase that, you want to be able to measure how long they're on your site so you can see if you're effective or not, or just wasting your time. All right, pages per visit goal. Now this would be kind of similar to the other one, but instead of an amount of time they're on your site, this is going to be tracking how many pages they've seen. So this is good if, let's say, you're Nike and you sell 10,000 items. You want people to look at a lot of pages because you want them viewing your catalog. Or if you're a blogger, you want people to see more than probably 2 pages on your site before they leave because you want to know they're reading your content. Events. Events are a little bit more advanced. What events do is basically they are defined by a series of triggers. So you can do all kinds of amazing, deep stuff with triggers and events. Example would be a lot of your ad tracking, your social recommendation tracking, those types of things. Stuff that you can't get just from a single page or a period of time spent on your website. So, goals. Let's talk a little bit more about them, generalized. You're limited to 20 goals in an analytics profile. That breaks down into 4 sets of 5 goals. And if you want more than 20, you need to hire a team, but you can add additional profiles. So goals are broken down into sets. And then basically this is how you would organize the goals on your page, on your site. So it's suggested to break your goals into that macro, micro layout, and that's just for your personal readability. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's personal preference when it comes down to how you set up your goals, how your boss wants you to report, how your client wants you to report. What will happen is the way you put these goals in to these groups is how it's going to display in the default reports. You can always drill down and customize reports into any of your goals, no matter where they're at. So that's great. All right, goal values. So now this is kind of where you start to look and go, all right, what exactly are goals so important for? And one of those things is basically that every action that happens on your site translates into money. It's a phone call, it's a lead for a salesperson, it's a product sold, whatever, right? And so how would you determine some of those values? So let's say that through your sales channel, you know that 10% of the people that sign up for your newsletter convert into buyers, and they buy from you a product or service valued at $1,000. Take 10% of $1,000, that's $100. So that person that subscribes to your newsletter is worth $100 to your company. And it's kind of important that you fill in the values when you're setting your goals, just because a lot of the other reporting that you'll get as far as ROI and whatnot requires that value to be in there, and it's just going to give you a lot more rich information. All right, funnels. So now you have all your goals in there, and you want to know what's happening on your website, how people are interacting. So what you do is you go in and you say, hey, let's set up this funnel. So what exactly is the funnel? The funnel is how people get to your final destination. So for example, on here you can see this is an example from one of my websites. So what happens is we have a destination goal, and that is the from PayPal. So that means if they got to this URL, they have given me money, and I get really happy. So what happens is then there's a funnel steps. And so step 1 is, hey, they want to order something. And step 2 is, hey, they want to order a specific something. And step 3 is, hey, they're giving me their credit card information. So I want to know at the end of the day, if they've paid me, how did they do it, if they've gone through these orders, or if they choose not to pay me, where did I lose them at in my cycle? So that's how you get to the visualization. And unfortunately, this website is not active anymore. And I don't have some data to show you, but it's fun because you'll see that I have 100% bounce on my order page because they can't order. So, but yeah, basically what would happen is where people were coming in, and let's say they decided to order, but they didn't like the price of the product, they might leave on the product page, or it didn't have their size, or their color, or their amount of cream and sugar in the coffee. But then if they got down towards the end and they left, then that would tell me maybe the ordering system isn't accurate enough. Maybe I need to use a different color button or change the text. So then I could go in and start tweaking the pages with my designers and developers, or we could do some A and B testing or some more advanced stuff to try to find out why people are falling out of our funnel. So that's pretty much that for funnels. I guess the next other option in there is all of the e-commerce tracking. And we felt that was a really deep dive kind of a topic, so we aren't really going to touch on that. We're just going to tell you that There are advanced tracking features where you can pull in all of the content from your orders, line item details, and whatnot, and get a bunch of metrics based on that. So if you're doing e-commerce tracking, you probably should have a team if you don't, and you should hire a Social Media Club Hawaii professional member. And that is time for Q&A. Yep, he's going to demo.
The question becomes if I turn cookies off in the browser or if I present says don't tracking, and then I say that. So there's really two different types of ways of tracking. One is called the server logs, and the server log files are anything that's incoming files that the server reports information. The other one is done through the browser itself. So that's done through a JavaScript code, it's done through different methods. If the browser has disabled, so you say that you have disabled JavaScript, there's no Google Analytics capabilities. The server logs capabilities, and things like POS and things like that, but the browser does. That's the answer.
Any other questions? Okay, so the question that was asked in the audience member was, if you turn on cookies on your browser or disable JavaScript, will Google Analytics be able to pick up your visits request? That was it. Anybody else have a question? I'm looking for the yellow cards. I just want you all to know if you're both yes. That helps me. All right, here we go.
I have a question in terms of agency affiliation. Someone read the how do you figure out
So sorry, you're asking whether you can track affiliate conversions on in your analytics, like where your sources of affiliate revenue is coming from. I don't think you can do that because the transaction happens on a third-party site, and you need to actually place tracking pixels and stuff on their site. I don't think they'll let you, and then you're actually going to break the code because I technically I think you can do it. Analytics provides some code that you can do cross-domain tracking, but I think you got to customize a code, and it gets really messy. It doesn't track that well. So I think the main problem that I've had in the past with affiliate tracking is the actual person or the main site that you're trying to sell for is just not going to let you add any kind of code. So I don't think it's possible unless you can get them to do that.
So one more option would be, so Google tracking, right, allows you to set things for events, as well as goals you have. An event is not there, it's a little piece of JavaScript that goes on a link, it triggers an event. What you can do is if you know that, let's say it's a banner on your website, and you want to track that outbound link as an event, you can track that by placing a little JavaScript code on the link. So you can call that anything you want. So three primary labels, essentially, with the tag
Yeah, that's just the toughest thing about being an affiliate is you just don't know what keywords are working, and it's pretty tough. Yeah. Do you guys want me to go through like a real live example of all the stuff we talked about, or do you just rather do a Q&A right now? Yes? Okay. All right. So so we'll go into the e-commerce. This is a website that I started, like 6-7 years ago, selling fish hook necklaces to the mainland and the world and all that, and just go through some data here. So this is an e-commerce report. It just gives you an idea for how many transactions I had and what the conversion rate was, which was pretty bad, 21%. Revenue that, I think this is a little bit understated, but it's pretty important that you hire, like the two guys said, to hire somebody that knows what they're doing, like a programmer, to actually implement the e-commerce code, because it gets really crazy and it's not very user-friendly. Obviously, I did it myself, and it's not working really good. That's why the numbers are so low, but it gives you an idea for the capability of Google Analytics. And if you do set it up correctly, the beauty of analytics and e-commerce tracking is you can actually go into your sources, and you're not going to see this because I didn't set up right, but you'll get a report for like referrals. So I got 11,000 visits from Surfboard Shack, which is another site that I run. And if you click on the e-commerce tab, it should show you, see, it doesn't say how much revenue was derived, but it should show you, like $30,000 came from Surfboard Shack, and like 10,000 came from Google, and then you can even dive down deeper into organic search. And this is really where it gets really critical to know which keywords are driving all your revenue. And so we use this for our clients. We look at what keywords drive all the revenue. 80-20 rule is going to come into play here a lot, where 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your keywords. A lot of times, those keywords that are driving a lot of traffic are going to be branded keywords. So if your company's like ABC Widgets, people are going to be searching for ABC Widgets, find your company and buy from you. What you want to do is optimize your site and do all the SEO so that people searching for more generic terms like blue widgets and green widgets are going to find your site and buy from you. So unfortunately, like I said, my analytics is not set up properly. This one? Yeah, I'm in e-commerce, but yeah. Yeah, so anyway, like right here, you'll see what keywords are driving all your e-commerce and all your sales. And then you can even do it with your paid search. So if you guys, don't have this set up and you're running some kind of, if you're selling stuff online, then you need to get this installed, because you want to know exactly, what keywords are working, what keywords aren't working, especially if you're paying for those keywords through AdWords. It's going to definitely help your bottom line. So that's e-commerce tracking. It's pretty cool. And then I'll go into more of like the overall, like just the average website. So here's this other website that I run. Kind of just started working on it a little bit more. I'll show you exactly what it is. Oop, I don't know how I got there, sorry. So this is like a photo blog that I started, and I go out and I like to shoot pictures in the shore break when I'm not doing client work. So this is just kind of the stuff that I post. Anyway, so then here's the analytics. I just closed the analytics, sorry about that. Sure. How much was the spend per day? Oh, for that site, I actually didn't really spend money on pay-per-click, because I ran a couple tests and I never really ever sold anything. So all my sales were from organic search. So in some things, some industries, AdWords just doesn't work. In other industries, it works really well. So I mean, you just have to try and run it and optimize and see whether it actually provides a positive ROI. But for my fish hooks, for whatever reason, I never sold. I think I had one sale and I spent $500 on AdWords and could never make it work. So, all my sales, pretty much, 99% of my sales came from organic search traffic. Okay, so this is, let me go back here. So I have a hard time using a PC because I've been using a Mac for so long, and it's like really weird. I used to be a PC guy, but now I'm a Mac guy. Switched over to the other side, the dark side. Okay, so here you can see I went back to May 1st of this year, and I got 9,000 visits. These spikes right here came from social media, so shows the importance of that. Some of the metrics that I like to look at, just like Rob mentioned, visits, unique visitors, is going to be really good. How many people actually, how many new visitors are coming to your website? Because some sites may have a lot of repeat visitors, so you may see, I have 30,000 visitors this month, and half of them are repeat visitors, and that doesn't, sometimes it doesn't really help you in your analytics. Page views, how many pages per visit? So obviously my site's not very good because people are not engaged. They look at maybe 1.5 pages and then they're bouncing. And I think Rob said 40% is bad, and I'm at 60%, so I got to get out of the room. So 60% is actually, it's not that good. What that tells me is that people are coming to my site from whatever sources, Google or Yahoo, and they're finding my content and they're just not happy. What I'm providing them is not what they're looking for, so that means I gotta take better photos or take photos of different things. Yep. Mm-hmm. Sure.
What industries do work well for AdWords? You said that your particular case didn't work for you, some work better, some doesn't. So can you give some examples of industries that work well with AdWords?
Let's see. Usually the industries that have lead generation, so like if you're like a lawyer or real estate, where you're not actually selling anything online and you're just trying to get contact information so your sales team can go out and actually make the sale and convert, those tend to work a little bit better. It works in e-commerce, like all the big companies like Amazon and eBay spend money on AdWords, but that's a little bit of a vague question. I mean, I've seen it work in e-commerce. It didn't work on my site, so it really depends on the actual vertical, the product you're selling, your sales point. Usually, if you turn a bigger profit on items, you can spend more money on AdWords, and that's the key because, if you're selling discount items, AdWords will just eat away your cost because, typically in e-commerce, I think it's a 3% conversion rate across the board, is what I've heard, and if you're only selling 3% of the time, I mean, you got a lot of waste there. So if you're making a small margin, it's really tough to make AdWords work. But if you're, if I'm like a bankruptcy attorney and I can, make like, well, that's probably not the greatest example, but like if I do, if I create wills and, I do that kind of stuff, and I charge you $5,000, and I can spend a lot more money to get that contact and get that lead, and it becomes more profitable. So it really depends on the actual vertical, so it's hard to say in industries because I've seen it work, like I said, through a lot of different industries. Okay, so all traffic. If you go into traffic sources, this is a really good metric to look at. This will tell you exactly where, this is the referral traffic basically. Well, actually not. This is all traffic comprised of referral traffic and organic traffic, paid traffic. So if you look at referrals, like Rob mentioned, these are the other sites that people are going to other sites, clicking on your link, and then coming to your site. So StumbleUpon, I got a lot of traffic from there. Facebook, the mobile version of Facebook, Surfboard Shack again, and then Google. And then if you look in search, so if you click on the organic link here, it'll show you the keywords that people are using to find my site. And then you can actually see, the bounce rate, and I don't sell anything on this site, so I can't really give you any kind of conversion data, but when I look at this report, I'm looking at bounce rate and time on site. So people search for Golden Gate Bridge and, they're spending a minute on my site. It's not really, I guess the pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge that I provide are not that great. It's not what they're looking for. So you can sort through bounce rate to find stuff. stuff that's not working. So obviously 100% bounce rate, these are the keywords that are not really doing so well. Flip it around and these are the ones that are doing a lot better. So stuff to do with Hawaii, that's what I'm a little bit known for. So average duration, it's another one you want to look at. So obviously somebody looking for shore break photos, they spent 20 minutes on my site, which is pretty good. Tantless, hidden beach on Oahu. So you'll want to look through all these metrics and sort and see, which keywords are actually providing, really good user engagement. So if you see all zeros and high bounce rates, that means people are just not interested in your product or your service or your photos.
Another question.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Right. So that's Google's new the new change they made to analytics. Let's see if I can. Where is it here? So that means when they're logged into a Google product like Analytics, Gmail, iGoogle or whatever, Google's just not going to provide you with that data. And I don't know why they did that. They've always had they've always had this tendency to not give you every bit of data. They hide a lot of stuff, maybe to make it harder for us SEO people. But that's what that is, and you just, unfortunately, it's affecting some of the research that we do with analytics, but it's just something that Google did. So that's what that not provided is. So we lost, I think some of the numbers are about 20% of the data from your keyword data is no longer viewable because of this. So as more people use Google products and are signed in and do searches, you'll see that number increase. So I'll go into the social aspect now. This is a really cool feature that Google added, and they're able to track, the metrics from social media. So I just started, I just created a social media or a Facebook page for this website. I'm a little bit behind the times in that, but I just started that. So some of my metrics are a little bit on the low side, but I do have some metrics to report. So you can take a look at this overview page. 9,000, almost 10,000 visits were from social media. Stumble upon, actually, is that right? I'm sorry. Almost 10,000 visits to the site, 6,000 were from social media, which is a pretty good chunk. I got a lot of the traffic from Stumble Upon. Sorry? Control 5, you said? Okay. So it'll just give you an overview of what the sources are, what social media platforms are giving you all the traffic, and you can dive in deeper. So obviously, Stumble Upon, and you can click and really get through all the data, and this will just show you what page on my site actually was targeted in all those. From when they went from Stumble Upon, which pages did they land on my site? And so obviously, this is the page that I put into Stumble Upon. I got stumbled, and I got all this traffic and stuff. Another page was the green sea turtle, so you'll get an idea for which are the popular pages on your site, based on the social media analytics.
Another question for Ashley.
Sure.
Do you have to use goals in order to track social media?
No, you don't have to. It's built in. Yeah. So again, I mean, this is just kind of reiterating the same stuff, but let me just take a look at some other stuff. You can actually, it's pretty cool that conversion metrics are actually integrated within social. So if you do sell products on your website, you can actually see which products sold because of social media. And I know in the past it's been really hard to put any kind of ROI on social media, but it's a good start right now, using Google Analytics. So you want to have e-commerce data set up so that you can see which, is it Facebook that's driving, a lot of your sales? Is it Twitter? Or is it, none of your sales are coming from social media, to get a good idea for sources of revenue.
We have another question now, and if you could repeat that question for the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I'll get into that right now. Let's see here. Okay, so social plugins. So everyone's starting to add all these, Facebook likes and Facebook share buttons and widgets on their pages. And they actually provide a really good report on that. So you can click on social source and it'll show you that, you know, I got 46 referrals from the Share This Facebook widget. 4 were from Google+. 4 were from Share This, Share This is the actual widget that I use for WordPress, the Share This email app, and then the Share This Twitter app. So you can go in there and really take a look at what widgets are actually working for you and which ones are driving all the traffic. And then this report is pretty cool. This is more of like a funnel report, and it'll show you from Stumble Upon, they went to my Keiki Beach page, and then from there, a lot of them dropped off. You know, I had pretty much almost all of them dropped off, but I did have a few that went to the next page. And I don't know why I can't this thing scroll. But anyway, this thing goes like, there you go, you can just like scroll it with the mouse. You can actually just take a look at the actual funnel source, and it goes from Stumble Upon to Keiki to homepage, and it goes on and on and on, and every time you lose, you know, additional visitors. But you'll get to see a good idea, and you can add steps which it'll just keep increasing the funnel. And really see from social media, are they just landing on one page and then bouncing, or are they actually getting really engaged? And obviously for my site, which is not good, they're coming from Stumble Upon, coming to this page, and then they're just pretty much dropping off, you know? So what that tells me is the rest of my content is not very good, so I gotta work on that. But yeah, really good to look at this, and it'll just give you an idea for how effective the social media campaign that you're implementing is. Because, you know, in the past it's been really hard to gauge that, but I think Google's done a really good job of giving you tools to assess that. And then combined with the tools that you can find in Facebook fan page, you know, that they provide really good metrics as well to give you an idea for how buzzworthy your content is.
Thank you. We got another question.
And then I got a question.
Okay.
Hi, first I have to apologize for marketing. I have this question about that you were generally what level do I actually go over and find this and avoid it? And how do I get that data? That to me seems like the most valuable data there is 34-year-old woman, 2 kids, how do I get that data? How do I use that data then to go out and make my website or report it?
I've got a crystal ball. I'm just kidding. The question for the people on the stream is, how do you get to more accurate data about the people on your website, so demographic information and whatnot? And the easiest answer for me to tell you that is to get detailed information from your users, you need detailed interaction. So registering them is one of the easiest ways to get info. Like, I don't know what women in blue dresses do, but if they come to my website and they register and I say, what kind of dress do you wear, and it's blue, and they say they're women, now I can track women in blue dresses on my website. So there's actually some third-party APIs, and I'm just gonna go off on a tangent because it'll be fun. There's some really strong third-party APIs. One's called Reapleaf, and I've demoed this for some people before, but just from an email address, you can get demographic information because there are so many agencies out there that catalog everything there is to know about us. It's totally creepy. But yeah, so one of the easiest ways, and if there's a specific need for it, because this is kind of going into the next question. I saw a tweet from Shiloh over here asking about what software we would prefer, or what software people like to use on Android or iPad as far as using analytics. And I guess what I'm kind of getting at is to tie these two together. You know, Google released an app for Android that lets you look at your analytics. And there's a few companies, and now even Google's actually got the real-time API. And it's kind of funny because I don't know if it's just like the pointy-haired boss kind of a thing, because people just love to look at graphs all day long, I guess. And kind of what you're getting at with what are people doing on your website? Well, it's kind of more of a long-term marketing analysis kind of a deal where you need people to actually sit down and determine what is good for your company. What's good for your company is not going to be good for Shiloh's company. And the thing with this analytical data that you might be able to look at on your iPad or your Android phone, you can't change that. It's everything that happens, and it's the funny term about real time, right? Like right now, oh, it's the past, oh, it's the past, oh, it's the past. You know, the past just keeps going, and even if you have access to real-time data on your website, other than is the server running, there's not a lot you're gonna be able to do to change that. So what I kind of like to say to people like you is, what's the ultimate goal that you're trying to accomplish? And then figure out how you can reach the kind of people you want to accomplish that goal, not the other way around, not what are the people on my site doing, I need to change it because there's people on my site. I hope that helps.
Bob, do you have anything to add to that?
Always, but no, it was a good answer. I mean, for me, the idea is, you talked about the pyramid, right? And the idea is that you start off with some low-level, just server metrics, are files being touched on your server. And then you move up to content usage, how are people interacting with the files on your server, right? And then you're able to get into conversion data, which to me is the sexiest thing in the world. And you get the conversion data, you're looking at, events. Did they click on a certain banner? Did they click on a certain, graphic? Did they click on a button that downloaded a form or downloaded a PDF, whatever it is? And you drive it, it's this evolution, right? The next piece up is, did they complete a goal, right? And the goal, as we saw, is the funnel. Do they start at point A, complete the steps, and go to point B? Or C or D or E, whatever it is. But after that, then we get in e-commerce. When you install a tracking code on the order fulfillment page of your e-commerce system, now I can actually tell you, down to a granular level what this person purchased. Well, with that, the next evolution now would be getting uniquely identified information from somebody. And there's already systems out there that are doing that. There are ways now of actually collecting. Let's say you set up an event through your MailChimp sign up, as an example, or your newsletter sign up, or through a single sign-on. Let's say you're using, Facebook or Twitter to sign into your website. You're actually able then to start pulling more demographic data out. And I think that there's ways right now you can cleverly put information in and say, okay, this person that purchased this product, I'm going to actually not only going to pass, the product they purchased, but I'm also going to pass new fields I've collected. Let's say, I've asked them what their gender is. I've asked them, other additional information. That can be passed into analytics. You can filter it out, and I can say, show me all conversions by males or females. So there's already ways right now that you can embed this additional information in and kind of take it to the next level. But at the end of the day, I think, for today's purpose, I think the best method is engaging them in your site and turning them over to your social campaign, where you can then communicate with them and actually feel them out on a one-to-one level. But again, there's no, as of today, there's no secret sauce other than things like the single sign-ons, signing up for different, additional services where you're collecting information and then rolling that information back into data like how many times have you been here, what did you purchase, things like that. So a CRM level.
I've got another question from the restroom. Hold on.
The question is asking to social analytics, and we want to know, you track your Facebook page, your LinkedIn profile, or your Twitter profile. The confusion is, are you tracking social traffic through your website, or are you tracking social profile analytics?
You're actually tracking, you're not actually tracking your individual profiles, like on LinkedIn, but you're looking at whatever website you have linked. I'll explain it. Like on my LinkedIn account, I link to my website, Akamai SEO. So I'm actually tracking all the visits on Akamai SEO from LinkedIn, but not actually my LinkedIn profile. If that makes sense.
That's why you see all of those sites have their own analytical programs. Facebook is constantly trying to make theirs better, and LinkedIn's trying to make theirs better, and Twitter doesn't have one.
I think I'm pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, you got my questions?
Question for Rob. Ready, Rob?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned comparing apples to apples is the best way to use analytics. How about comparing apples to industries? Is there a way, for instance, to know, let's say I see that, okay, my time spent on my site has increased from a year ago or a month ago, but how about compared to other companies that might offer the same set of data?
So interestingly enough, it did exist. There was an option where you could opt your data in and then see is Google's benchmarks. They disabled that, I think, a year ago. Correct me on that. I believe it was about a year ago. What's interesting is the same time they also started not hiding your search results. So Google may be making a play behind the scenes with that type of data on an enterprise level. I'm not sure, but as of today, it's been disabled. But there was a thing called Google benchmarks, where you'd opt in your data. Google could then share that data anonymously with other people, and you could say, hey, I'm in a nonprofit sector, and as an example, my bounce ratio is lower than this, my conversion ratio is maybe higher than this, and kind of get a pace of where you should be at. So, as of right now, there's not any benchmarking data. That said, I'll throw another hot button point out that I didn't want to talk about because it wasn't part of my piece, but I'll throw out there now, is that talking about apples to apples, right? There's too often that we see different different marketing companies that are looking to do, whether it's paid search or SEO or other forms of marketing, that are actually sending your traffic to third-party other domains. So what's interesting about that is that there's, you could actually be, spending a significant amount of money on paid, as an example, but you can't compare the paid to the organic because it's on a different domain, tracked separately. So one of the things that I would recommend, and again, I'm probably ruffling feathers with some people, but one of the things I'd highly recommend is actually making sure that all of your data goes to the same domain, whether it's obviously not to a home page, to landing pages that are specifically sent to do that, or using cross-domain, like we talked about earlier, using the cross-domain tracking, so you can actually see that. Because what's interesting is if you're not looking apples to apples at different data, the lead sources, how they're converting compared to their counterparts and compared to the budget spent on each, you're pretty much just burning money. So, anyways, completely random, but I thought I'd throw it in there.
We have another question from the live stream. I feel ridiculous asking this. So this is the panel. How do you feel about Mr. Clicky? I don't know what that is, so that's why I feel so silly asking that. Does anybody have an answer?
We are completely clueless who Mr. Clicky is.
Excellent. Me too. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, guys. Do you have another question? That's okay. This is how I connect.
My question pertains to, since living abroad for a long time and moving back to Hawaii, Hawaii seems to have a lot of smaller businesses. My question really pertains to what's kind of unique about Hawaii in terms of the size of the businesses, in terms of the scale, just highly respectful, and so the website platform for a lot of companies, cell phone companies, for example, you can comment a little bit about that in terms of what's their strategy as far as marketing here locally, like we do in Hawaii, products, tourism.
I guess I was the only one listening to the question, so I'll take it. The question essentially was, is there different strategies marketing here on Hawaii, as opposed to potentially a mainland company or internationally? Is that what kind of a gist of it? So, what's interesting to notice is that, Google Analytics provides a good amount of information when it comes to referral sources, which countries are, using you, which languages are using you. One of the things I highly recommend is, take a look at how much language usage from a foreign language you have. WordPress has really simple, Q Translate as an example, really simple plugins that allow you to, localize your site to another language. So just from right there, if you identify that you have, let's say maybe more than 10 or 25%, let me say, a good amount, you may want to, from another language, you may want to think about, having a redirect on your site so when somebody comes in, they're automatically seeing their own custom language. That wasn't the question, that's my soapbox. So getting back to the question on how to market differently, I think, there's a lot of different opportunities. One would be let's just talk about conversion, right? Let's say you have an e-commerce store. Let's say you're selling luau's or whatever the case, or let's say you're selling, some sort of Hawaiian product. If you can identify which location seems to be sending the most qualified traffic, maybe you'll find out that, is it Oregon, is it California, is it Washington, is it, which state seems to be sending the best traffic. You can then identify, should I open up a store there? Should I, do more advertising in that sector? Should I open up some local ads, or ads in their local newspaper, whatever it is? So I guess an option is just to study how the traffic, again, for me, I never look at the traffic as a whole, ever. Means it's worthless to me. I could care less. I want to drill down. I want to look at the lead sources. From there, I want to look at things like location. I want to look at language. I want to look at different demographics. I want to figure out, which demographic seems to be fitting, working best, and how can I maximize that, and then identify which ones are, where there's areas for opportunities. I still don't think I answered your question. Close enough. Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
while I'm walking, there's another question, and there's also a question from the live stream. Hey Derek, will you repeat the name of the website that does the email tracking?
I just tweeted it, but it's Rapleaf, Rapleaf, like a leaf that wraps, I guess.
Yes, my question is, a lot of the local companies that are offering advertising on their websites, plugins, some charge pay per click, and others charge just by impressions. There's so many different methods. Obviously, it depends on the business model and moment, but is there a benefit to buying the impressions ever, or is it always worth the pay per click? Is there any advice on that one?
Is there ever an advantage to buying a billboard? So, I mean, that's the way I look at it, right? Like, an impression, someone's seen it, hopefully, and a click is someone has seen it and interacted with it. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. There's been times where my business, I sponsored Pearl Harbor Day, and I don't do anything with the military. I don't do anything with Pearl Harbor. I do technology work, but I just wanted to put my name in the community and have the people that knew my company know that I cared enough to do something good for the community. So it just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your marketing, whether it's valuable to you or not.
I think I'd prefer cost per click, because otherwise, if you have a lot of money to brand, then it's okay to do impressions, because you don't care if a million people see your ad and never click, then you get charged for it, right? So if you're trying to keep a budget intact, then you probably want to go with CPC.
I also agree. There's edge cases where impressions are much more valuable for different reasons, but for the most part, cost per click is where you want to go. But what I wanted to weigh in on this would essentially be, if you're paying for banner advertisement somewhere, track it, right? Track it back to the conversion. And one of the points that I hope nobody glossed over, but one of the points that Derek mentioned earlier was when you're setting up your goals, right? You may say, okay, there was a lot of good information, but I don't do e-commerce, and you walk out and you forget about analytics, right? No matter who you are, no matter what you sell, we're talking everything from full-on e-commerce store all the way down to a nonprofit whose only goal is to collect email addresses, right? No matter what it is, you can convert that action into a goal, or at a minimum, at least into a series of events. So the idea is that with this is that no matter what you're at, and a thing that Derek mentioned, and I hope you guys caught it, was really great. It's also what I say in my class, but I won't go there. Is the idea is that if you're a plumber, right, and let's say your plumbing service is $100, and 10 people fill out your contact form, you'll see you have 10% close ratio on this thing, 10% conversion. Well, every time somebody fills out that form, it's worth $10 to you. So take that type of scenario, run it back now, and look at how much you're paying that, the lead, right? How much you're paying for that inbound traffic, and you may find that you have absolutely no return on investment. Dump them, right? You may find that you've got great return on investment. Add to that, add to your spend with them. So at the end of for me, again, at the end of the day, is like they said, you've got to have the click, otherwise you can't get the conversion data. But don't stop there. Don't do things just like visits, right? Because if you're not checking the bounce, doing the percentage off of the bounce ratio of the visits, doing that math down, you may have really unqualified traffic that you're excited about because it's tons of visits. At the end of the day, always go down to e-commerce or at least conversion or at least events.
Just to expand on that a little bit, what Rob said is you got to figure out your CPA, your cost per acquisition. So what are you willing to spend to get that one customer? And you got to reverse engineer, like what is the average profit, and then go back and what is the conversion rate, and you'll see that it's only 10%, and how much can you spend. So if you go backwards, you'll figure out the numbers, and you'll have a pretty good idea for your advertising budget. And then like Rob said, if it doesn't work out after a couple months, just can it and move on to the next thing.
We have another question. This one's for you, Rob. We're treading into dangerous territory here. But the question is, how do you deal with really competitive keywords on your site? You know, particularly in Hawaii, there are keywords that everybody's searching for. But how do you use Google Analytics to maybe identify what works and maybe keep it some competitive keywords?
So, and I think, I'll let Neil also chime in on this, but I think the keyword process always starts off with guessing, right? Unless you have the data already, you have to guess. And so you can go into Google's AdWords tool, and you can do some searching around or other different, keyword discovery, word tracker, different opportunities to go into these different tools and see, okay, I've talked to people that buy my product, and this is what they told me they would type in if they bought it. I talked to my neighbor, I talked to, my grandma, and they said if I were to type your product in, this is what I would type. I've looked at my competitors, identified kind of the keywords that seem that they're using because it seems to be working for them, and I've also looked at, in my industry, right? I run those keywords through, and I'm identified, keywords that have high search traffic. I guess the reason I bring this up is, at the end of the day, if you have no search traffic for these keywords, you can have a really cool keyword that you rank #1 for, but if nobody searches for it, who cares, right? It's completely worthless again. So make sure that the keywords you're putting in have some sort of traffic value. Now, later on, when we get through the process, you may loop back around and say, hey, even though this keyword only has 15 visitors a month that even search for it, my conversion is so high on that keyword that doesn't matter. I love that keyword because every 15, all these 15 people that come in are converting. But that's the first phase, right? Is just understanding, what it is that you're going to guess that you want. Putting those in your site, testing it, running through your actual, so he's brought it up here, this is perfect. So running then through your analytics report and saying, okay, I've guessed that these keywords were what I wanted, but did they actually convert, right? Do these keywords actually, mean anything, right? Did they find me, how are they doing? So I typically like to run the, under your sources, run the organic data, extract that, and then identify, okay, how's this organic data doing? And you may need to completely reshift the keywords that you're optimizing for based on actual data versus on an educated guess. So I guess the question was really about highly competitive keywords. If you want to rank for Hawaii real estate, you're going to need probably, well, I don't know. If you want to rank for Hawaii real estate and you're not currently on the first page, the way that the trends are going, kind of forget about it, because by the time in 2 years from now, when you get enough link building in to work, Google's going to completely forget about that anyway, just saying. So if you want Hawaii real estate, maybe you refocus that into a social campaign, or you could do some paid search, but if you're doing paid search for it, and that keyword's $47 a click or $180 a click or whatever it is, does that keyword actually bring you return on investment, or are you just burning your money? So.
You want to talk just a minute, Neil's pulling up the keywords here, about how things have changed a little bit and how social impacts rank at all?
Yeah, so, I've been saying this for literally years. I'm surprised that SEO is still an industry, but I'm happy that it is. It's great money. Oh, it's better said that I didn't say that anyway. Every year I say, okay, no one's going to care about, social's not going to be the big buzzword anymore, SEO's not going to be the big buzzword anymore. Everyone's going to talk about conversion rate optimization. I've tried to have this class at P&M for probably 2 years now. Nobody wants this class. But you all will eventually come around, and conversion rate optimization will be the only thing you guys care about. We're going to eventually reach a saturation point where we have enough traffic coming from direct, we have enough traffic coming from social, enough traffic coming from search, that at a certain point you're going to say, hey, let's maximize what we've got. So along the lines of ultra competitive keywords, you may want to say, rather than trying to get more traffic from these keywords, let me just do better with the traffic that I got. And that's the introduction. This right here is a gateway drug to CRO. And so I hope you're enjoying this. But the idea really becomes, to answer Tara's question, what's been happening, right? Back in the day, I don't want to turn this whole into an SEO class, but the 30-second is, we keep manipulating Google, right? And I'm the best at it. Google me, search engine optimization expert, #1 in the world, right? Anyway, the point is that we keep manipulating Google, and we tell them over and over, hey, what is it that you're looking for that's successful? Is that a disagree? Or is that, I can't, Question, yes. As to sum this up real quick, as things progress, we continue to manipulate Google, and we say, hey Google, what do you want to see? Okay, I'll trick you into showing you exactly what you want to see. With the most recent second version of Penguin that came out, it's shown that, hey, search is going to be around for still a little while, but you really need to be augmenting it with social. Social shows kind of reinforces your link building. So the idea is that you can have the best inbound links in the world, but if there's no social share for it, it's not going to be as weighted as much. So SEO is still alive and well, and you just need to have a social element to it to complement it. Yes. There are actually a few companies that provide services along that line that essentially track with cookies. People come into your site, and when they eventually do convert into a newsletter sign up or whatever it is, they can actually say, hey, they came back this many times. I do believe that Google Analytics will eventually evolve to the point where they allow you to actually start seeing more of a CRM. Whether it's going to be a paid service or not, who knows? But the point is that you can be there. Yeah, when they shut it down. Currently, as of right now, if you get clever, so events have been around for a little while, but nobody seems to know about them or use them. If you get clever with the events, you can actually start collecting social data right now, right? So the idea is that if somebody clicks on something and they've already authenticated it, let's say they go ahead and they're clicking on your newsletter, right? You can use the values inputted in the newsletter to get pointed right into social data. And if you want to work some pretty easy little PHP script or whatever it is that you want to work off of, you could build something that would apply historical data when they do convert. But as of right now, yeah, it is a huge disconnect. But the cool thing is at least we're up into the conversion side of things. We're not still talking about how many hits did I have, right? So it's progressing.
Okay, guys, I just want you to know we have 8 minutes left. So, is there any more audience questions before I let take it away?
I mean, I'm pretty much done with my presentation unless there's, if you want me to expand on how do you compete for really competitive keywords, I was going to just follow up on that and add a little bit more real life experience. So like Rob said, we use the Google AdWords keyword tool. It's free, or you can sign up for an AdWords account and not have to put in that crazy security key every time. And then punch in like let's say you're doing Hawaii real estate and you're a broker. Hawaii real estate is probably going to be the most competitive keyword. What we do is we brainstorm, just trying to think in layman's terms, what would our clients or customers be searching for, and not get too technical. So obviously Hawaii homes, Hawaii real estate in Hawaii, Hawaii properties. I would make a list of that, and then I would start punching them in here, and then AdWords will give you a really cool, it just gives you all these synonyms and related terms. Sometimes it doesn't really work that well, like in this case, Hawaii weather, it's not relevant, but you can look at some of the other tabs and you'll get a really good sense for what other people are actually searching for. So you can use this tool, and then I would go in, obviously the ones that have the most searches, well, you can look at global or local. Local supposedly are the ones that are searching in Hawaii, but the ones that have the most searches tend to be the ones that are the most competitive and the hardest to rank for. Then I would go on Google and search for Hawaii real estate and take a look at what other people are actually targeting. So like Hawaii Life, they're one of our top competitors, Hawaii real estate, MLS. So obviously I know Hawaii real estate. Everyone's trying to search or is trying to target Hawaii real estate. You look at every single listing on the first page, pretty much Hawaii real estate. All the big companies all target Hawaii real estate. And there's obviously some variation, so that will give you a good idea for what the big bang keyword is. Obviously Hawaii real estate. One thing to know about these type of keywords, they're really hard to rank for, especially in this market, because we work extensively in the Hawaii real estate market. They're hard to rank for, and they actually don't convert that well. So you spend a lot of money because you want to impress your boss saying, we rank for Hawaii real estate, but the conversion rate is really low and you spend a lot of money. The long tail stuff is what you want to spend your time on, especially if you have a limited budget. Stuff like, the actual zip or the actual address of a property, like 135, ABC Street or whatever. Those are the ones that are they're gonna, give you a better return. Something like, if you compare Hawaii real estate to house in Pearl City or house in Pacific Palisades, I mean, the last two terms are going to have a lot lower traffic, but you're going to probably have a higher conversion rate because somebody is actually looking for a place. It's very specific. They're looking for a place to live, and it's not like Hawaii real estate that's just so broad. And it could mean, are you talking about Honolulu? Are you talking about Maui or Kauai or Big Island or Hilo or Kona? So, just to give touch upon how do you actually rank? A lot of it has to do with links, and I don't want to go too far into it because it's just a whole nother session. But link building is really key. It's first of all, it's optimizing your website to target Hawaii real estate, and then it's all about links. Do you have links from powerful websites? Are they are they relevant to yours? Are you getting links from other real estate websites or real estate content websites? But basically, it's the right type of links that you get and how powerful they are. That's going to determine whether you rank for a keyword like Hawaii real estate. So it's pretty. I'm trying to simplify it a lot, but it's pretty complicated and that's why you hire someone like Robert and myself. But I mean, basically, if I can give you just really simple advice for your business, just try to get as many links as possible. If you look, you can find them. Chamber of Commerce has a free link you can get from them in their directory. It costs about $400 a year, and you get networking benefits. You can get some from Yahoo directory. You can, the best thing is to try to build your brand. So you go out and you pitch Hawaii Business or Hawaii Business News, or Pacific Business News, Hawaii Business Magazine. Try to get features, and when they actually do the feature on your site, tell them to get a link. And when you're paying for banner advertising from like Hawaii News Now, ask them, can you get me a link on one of your subpages? Just ask for links wherever you can. That's the best thing, And if you build your brand up, the links will come.
This is many good resources as far as websites or folks who are like to kind of stuff. Google, even if you use
There's a really good book I read on analytics, and I totally can't remember the name. So what I will do, exactly, yep.
I'll send out a post email after this, also with the download of all the PowerPoints tonight as well, so we'll get that.
It's got a yellow cover.
Yeah. Is there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you all for sharing your expertise. I kind of feel like we could have had another 3 hours on this topic, so I bet we'll be seeing you guys again. Thank you very much, guys.